Countries around the world are condemning Russian President Vladimir Putin's move to put his nuclear deterrent forces on higher alert.
We urge Russia to tone down its dangerous rhetoric regarding nuclear weapons.
Take your finger away from the nuclear button and never put it back for as long as you live.
Fierce fighting continues in Ukraine, with attacks on Kyiv and Kharkiv continuing into day 6 of the war. Russian and Ukrainian officials met earlier today in Belarus, but the talks concluded with no immediate agreements to end the fighting, unsurprisingly. William Cohen served as U.S. Secretary of Defense from 1997 to 2001 under President Bill Clinton. He's now Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Cohen Group. Secretary Cohen joins us now from Washington. Good to meet you, sir. Thank you very much for making the time for our program.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Your interpretation of the ratcheting up of rhetoric on Putin's part where the nuclear button is concerned?
Well, I think he's getting more nervous and more desperate as he sees that his troops are unsuccessful in completing the mission they've been given. Then he's getting angrier. And I don't know when anger elevates to rage and rage then to something even beyond that. But I think he's at that stage now where his plans have been frustrated. I think he did not anticipate the kind of resistance, obviously, that he's getting now. And he did not anticipate the solidarity that the Western world has demonstrated in opposition to what he is doing. So I think all of that has upset him. He feels passionately that he is going to reunite Ukraine with Mother Russia as such. And is never going to recognize their independence. And so what the Ukrainians are demonstrating to us is what real freedom means. You recently had the shutdown of your borders from some of the truckers who were complaining about either mask mandates or vaccine mandates. Take a look at what the Ukrainians are fighting for. That's real freedom. Their lives are on the line, and they're dying by the day. But they're willing to fight for freedom, and it's not from wearing a light mask or having a vaccination to prevent the public health from deteriorating. So there are a lot of lessons they're learning. Putin's learning a lesson. We're learning a lesson, and that is never to trust him, because you may remember he said, "I will never invade or have an incursion into Ukraine." His foreign minister Lavrov said the same thing. And as a result of that, we were sort of relying upon those lies, because we could have moved more equipment, more food, more fuel into Ukraine much faster. But I think that we were afraid in terms of not giving him an excuse to do something he pledged not to do. And as a result, he had proven that he lied. And now we're on the backside of that, having to rush as much supplies, food, fuel, weapons, money, as the former ambassador just mentioned, into Ukraine to help the Ukrainian people preserve their freedom.
How big of a mistake, Secretary, do you think it was to trust anything that he said? As you mentioned, sort of delaying the necessary help to Ukraine, or the deployment of that help.
Well, I think we've learned a lot of lessons from him, but this should not be shocking news. If we look what he did in Syria, supporting Assad, who was dropping barrel bombs on innocent people, if we look what he did in Crimea, if we look now in threatening to unleash even nuclear weapons against Ukrainian people. So this has been a series of steps that he's taken. I was in the conference back in 2007 in Munich at the security conference, and he gave a very volatile, powerful Cold War speech, which stunned most of the people in that audience, because they were expecting him to come in and say, let's find a way that we can have a modus vivendi, that we can live together, given your system and our system. Let's find how we can live in peace. Instead, he said it was a great tragedy, the greatest tragedy, to have the elimination or the fall and decline of the Soviet Empire. So we've known about him personally and his feelings, and now he feels more confident, because he has made established a closer relationship with China. And China has sent signals, or they made statements, that they don't favor the invasion of a neutral country or a sovereign country. But they've also blamed the United States and the West for the catastrophe that's unfolding before our eyes.
President Biden has drawn a hard line in the sand, it appears, up until this point, as for troops going actually into Ukraine. Do you think that's the right decision?
I don't believe the troops are going into Ukraine. They'll be in the Baltic.
Yeah, that's right. He's saying they won't go into Ukraine. My apologies.
Yes.
That's what I meant. And do you think that's right?
I do, because I think what he is concerned about is that would then put the United States face to face with Russian soldiers, which we've tried to avoid since the end of World War II. And then you really are ratcheting up the possibility of catastrophe, because once you have the two superpowers, I say superpower for Russia only in the sense they have nuclear weapons, but once you put two nuclear powers head to head, you can never tell who will strike the match first, if any are to be struck, and then you have a worldwide catastrophe. Because once you unleash the nuclear genie, so to speak, then you have a chain reaction, and then it goes up the ladder into worldwide destruction. So I've been talking to a number of other countries and saying everybody has a stake. It's not just Ukraine that's at issue here. It's not just the West. It's the entire world when you start talking about nuclear weapons. Now, his threat may be an empty one. He may be trying to intimidate the West from taking any further action to support the Ukrainian people. But nonetheless, when you're dealing with someone who has been training and exercising with tactical nuclear weapons, you have to be very careful on where this is headed.
I wanted to ask you, kind of circle back to where we began and on that point that you just made. I know it's virtually impossible to predict someone like Putin's behavior, but how seriously would you, if you were still occupying, for example, the Secretary of Defense position, be taking that threat of nuclear action? Like, how seriously do you think Putin means it, or do you think it is empty?
I don't know. I don't think anyone at the Department of Defense knows. But I think it's important to make sure that we are aware of the threat, that we are prepared should that ever take place. And I know from that experience of what our readiness is and what our capability is. And it may be just an idle threat or an empty threat, but I don't think we can ever just rely upon that again. He is in a difficult position now. I recently said he has swallowed a chicken bone and it's stuck in his throat. And he needs somebody to help give him the Heimlich maneuver to pop it out of his throat, because right now he doesn't seem to be able to pull it out himself. And he may need help from whether the Chinese, India, the Israelis, who have a very close relationship with the Russians. They should be very involved in this now and trying to persuade Putin that he needs a peaceful reconciliation on this issue. So there are a lot of other countries who have tremendous interest, even though it looks like it's only Ukraine, it's only their freedom. No, it's our freedom. It's the world's freedom. Those of us who believe in freedom as opposed to authoritarianism. And that's really what's at stake here. As you look at what's been taking place for the past 20 years, more and more countries are gravitating toward an authoritarian form of government, saying that democracy has run its course. It no longer works. It's declining. It is degrading. It is divisive, et cetera, and can't make decisions like a totalitarian or authoritarian government can. So that has been going on, and this is a chance for people to say, no, we really want to be free. Yes, we understand democracy takes longer. It's messier, more chaotic, but ultimately it's free people expressing their free will. Without that, you have President Putin dictating either you will do this or I will kill you. And what he's saying to the Ukrainians, either give up your freedom or I will murder you on a mass scale. And that's what we possibly be looking forward to, and that is mass murder unfolding before our eyes in living color. Something no one wants to see, but it's possible. And then you raise the issue, or you might raise the issue at that point, is the world going to sit by as he continues to plunder that country and turn it into a desert, turn it into Chechnya? Will we simply sit by and say, well, we made a mistake, we didn't give the Ukrainians enough? I think there'll be time enough for that. But right now, as a former ambassador to Canada said, what do I want? I want more money, I want more supplies, I want more weapons, and I want more sanctions. That's what we can give them now. And then we have to deal with the other issue is How bad is this going to get before someone steps in and says stop?
That certainly is the question. Thank you, Secretary Cohen. I appreciate your time this evening. Good
to be with you. Thank you.
That's former Secretary of Defense, U.S. Secretary of Defense, William Cohen. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.